start with the New York City trial, the hush money trial. You posted this on your website. Trump trial prosecutors face big problems. What are the problems, in your opinion?
Well, it's not clear what laws Trump violated, even under their own theory of the case, where you have misdemeanor counts initially related to him or someone in his office detailing what I would call a legal expense. What they're trying to do to make those charges more serious is to suggest that there was something else that he was up to in doing so, and that was not reporting appropriately campaign-related expenses. So there's a big question about whether, A, they are campaign-related expenses. What exactly do they mean? Is this a state law violation? Is this a federal law violation? So frankly, there's confusion, as far as I can tell, in the courtroom as to what's going on, because some of these issues were just being raised in the jury, just before the jury, with opening argument. And, you know, Mr. Pecker's testimony over the last few days, I'm not quite sure why it's related to anything. So the president had a friend at the National Enquirer who was willing to manage stories for him, like he was doing for other people. And it's not clear that he was doing...
This is the catch and kill situation where he finds stories that are not beneficial to him and then makes sure that they're never aired.
Right. And now, according to Pecker, he's done it for... it's his practice to do it for all of his friends and people he wants to curry favor with. And so, you know, the new question is now, is it a campaign finance related issue for politicians to work with media on managing press? And if that's the case, Katie barred the door for other presidents who have been managing negative news stories or positive news stories. It works both ways.
Tom, let me read you this. This is from Reason Magazine's Jacob Sullum, and then I'll get your reaction. He says this: the question of whether this Trump-Cohen-Daniels financial arrangement violated federal election law hinges on whether the hush money is properly viewed as a campaign expense or a personal expense. That distinction, in turn, depends on whether Trump was motivated by a desire to promote his election or by a desire to avoid embarrassment and spare his wife's feelings. So is that what it hinges on? Is the reason that money was paid and categorized as a legal expense?
I mean, maybe if you accept the premise that there's a good faith basis to have a federal election law and issues related to a federal campaign be litigated by a prosecutor in New York City. And this is related to steps that were taken in 2016 and 2017. It's now 8 years later. There's strong arguments that even if there were issues that could have been pursued criminally, it's all too late. And as far as I'm concerned, I just want to get to the heart of it here. This is an investigation or a prosecution about nothing. No serious prosecutor would have brought charges like this in any other circumstances. And we've got this situation where we have these radical, novel applications of the law, never happened before, all being applied to Trump simultaneously by Democratic prosecutors throughout the nation. And as far as I'm concerned, what we're witnessing up there is election interference. It's a crime in progress in that regard, to the degree we have a prosecutor in New York abusing his power to deprive President Trump of his civil rights under law. And he's a hostage. He's not literally a hostage, but he's being kept away from the campaign trail while President Biden is able to campaign freely. And it's all because you have two Democrat politicians, both the prosecutor and the judge, manipulating and abusing the system to harass him.
Let's talk about the immunity case, since that was just heard yesterday in front of the Supreme Court. Your views on presidential immunity from criminal prosecution after they leave office, you know, and in general, not just in Mr. Trump's case.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of folks say, well, the president's not above the law. That's not the issue here. The question is the law, which is the U.S. Constitution, does it provide presidents the protection as President Trump is suggesting? And it's clear a majority of the Supreme Court say yes. And so at best, Jack Smith is left with, if the ruling goes as widely expected, the difficult task of delineating and pretending that, well, this step he took as president was political and personal, but it wasn't official. And I don't see how you kind of take the two away from, separate the two issues, personal and presidential, for a president in office.
So you would say blanket immunity for presidents?
Yeah, I think the law requires it. And by the law, meaning the U.S. Constitution. And the U.S. Constitution is set up where the president has these prerogatives as the chief executive, and that means he's not subject to scrutiny by the courts or Congress for official acts in office.
So Justice Kagan actually brought that up and said the founders never put in an immunity clause in the Constitution. They could have, but they meant not to because, we'd just gotten rid of a king.
Right, and I guess the response to that would be that the immunity flows from the structure of the Constitution, that he's got prerogatives as President of the United States. The executive power resides in him, and so if it resides in him, who can check him beyond the processes envisioned in the Constitution, which specifically is impeachment?